Good morning, everyone. This is Helene Paroff. I wanted to say good morning. By my clock, it's about 9:01, so we'll get going. Welcome. It looks like some people are still in the process of joining us, but in order to stay to our time limit of 9 to 10 o'clock this morning, do want to get going. Both Bill Rasplica and Glenna Gallo send their regrets that they're not able to be with us today, but we've got a full agenda for this coming hour. And then for some of you, you are aware of a webinar that's going to occur from 11:30 till 1 o'clock today that WASA is doing in conjunction with OSPI and AWSP that focuses in on scheduling, which was a main topic that came up during our last session together at our Special Education Directors Academy. I also want to begin by saying thank you to those who took a few minutes to send us some of your reflections over the year and what was really important learning for you and any ideas for the future. If you've not yet had an opportunity to do that and can within the next couple of weeks, we sure would appreciate that. That's one of the ways that we work through continuous improvement. So this morning we have those people or representatives of our special education state needs projects. In just a couple of minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Carol Brewer, who will walk us through some information about all of the state needs projects. As well as then we're going to turn to OSPI special education staff, who will be walking us through the passage of 1599 and its implications for graduation pathways and how it impacts students with disabilities. We may have a few minutes at the end to hear from you about what else you would like to learn about, what's on your mind. If we, though, as kind of way of reminders, try to use the chat box as much as possible. Jamie Chilinsky is on with me, and she and I will try to monitor that throughout. So to the maximum extent possible, if you could make sure that your mics are muted and make use of the chat box, that would be great. As I said, Carol Brewer will be kicking us off talking about the OSPI Special Education State Needs Projects. Also with her are Chris Hirschman. Carol will talk about e-learning for educators. Scott's not able to join us, but information will be given about the Special Education Support Center, Kristen Leslie about the Special Education Technology Center, and then Brent is not able to be with us either, but some discussion around the Washington Sensory Disabilities Service. When we get to part of, so I'm going to do this as way of introduction now, and then Jennifer and Tanya and Clarice can introduce themselves a little bit more, but Jennifer will be kicking us off. And as many of you know, Jennifer is with OSPI Special Education staff focusing on program improvement, Tanya, the Director of Special Education, and Clarice Leong, who works alongside those in special education staff on graduation alternative assessment. So key to the discussion about the implications of 1599. I'm going to ask the people mute if they can, and what I'm going to do is stop my sharing and allow, oh, hello, good morning, everybody, and then see if Carol, you can pick that up. Carol?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, are you able to now share screen?
Let me take a look.
Yep. You got it. So good morning, Carol. Thanks so much for being with us and sharing information about the special state special needs projects.
Okay, and I'm actually not seeing the PowerPoint.
So we can see your screen.
You can't see the PowerPoint?
No,
Oh, okay.
we see your Google screen.
Okay, let me just, sorry about that.
That's okay. I see it, second one down.
Bear with me here while I pull it up.
Okay. Otherwise, if you want me to pull up mine, I can do that.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. Again, I'm Carol Brewer, and I'm the director of the E-Learning for Educators project. And also with me are Elaine Kurlinski, who's the manager of the project, and Chris Hirschman, director of transition from the Center for Transition Services, and Kristen Leslie, who's the director of the Special Ed Technology Center. So there are 5 state needs projects that OSPI funds, and collectively we provide professional development and technical assistance and consultation and training for parents, families, and educators. Here are the 5 projects: CCTS, eLearning, SETC, SESC, and WSDS. And so we're just going to go over briefly a little bit about each project and the services that we provide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris from CCTS.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see some familiar names on the list, so welcome, and I'm glad you're here. I'm from the Center for Change and Transition Services. We are housed at Seattle University in the College of Ed. However, we have very little relationship with them. We provide secondary training and technical assistance around secondary transition. We also are the people who analyze the district reported state post-school outcome data that's gathered every year by school districts to follow up on students who left 1 year earlier and find out what they're doing, either in the education realm or employment, and how they're engaged in adult activities after their first year out of school. So that information is released to school districts every year around December. And so we produce a state report analyzing what the past students are doing with their days and weeks and months. And we also release district-specific data back to districts. So our annual performance report is given to OSPI, who then in turn gives it to US Department of Ed. So Carol, you want to move us forward here? We provide assistance through ESDs, we do training, we do technical assistance to school districts. We encourage and provide training, specific training around writing effective IEPs around transition. And what we know from the research is that if we have good quality IEPs, the tendency for students to stay in school is higher, their graduation rates are higher, and they have positive post-school outcomes. And these all relate to the indicators that we report to the federal, to the feds every year through the state. Carol, thanks. This is our post-school outcomes for the year 16-17. This is our most recent data. Our gathering of new data will start in June and will go through November 1st. So every year we do this for students who have left 1 year ago. So this is our most current. So as you can see, our competitive employment is about 35%. Our higher ed's 21, other training or education is 3%, other employment, which is less than 20 hours a week and sometimes less than going rates for employment, for pay. The most concerning area here is the no engagement of almost 28% of our students with disabilities who left school in 2016-17 school year are engaged in neither employment nor education nor training. So these are the students that school districts and the state are focusing on. What can we do differently to help that transition become more positive post-school outcome? Next slide, please. Thanks. So every year we survey by phone. We don't, the school districts do, about 6,500 students. And once again, this is the data that we got from our sample in the 16-17 survey. Next slide. So as part of transition, as required in the federal law, there are really 6 components that we look at in developing a viable transition plan for students. And the first area is conducting an age-appropriate assessment. It looks at needs, preferences, interests, and strengths. I always forget one, and it's never the same one. From there, helping students write measurable post-secondary goals. What do they want to do in school? Identifying what kinds of things they should be engaged in and how schools can support and provide some of those engagements, and identifying some services to get ready to move from school to work or school to adult life. Planning out their course of study, writing their annual IEP goals, and then coordinating with adult agencies for services that they will receive or possibly receive after they leave public education. So this looks really similar to the high school and beyond plan sequence of things as well. So the alignment of high school and beyond plan and transition, the sequence for transition and IEPs is very close. And we worked on a document that is housed at OSPI that aligns those. It can be used by special ed and general ed. So we aren't having to replicate things, but we can use things that we're already involved in with every student in school. That every student means our students with special needs as well. Next slide, please. This is what this flow chart looks like. If you want copies of this, all you have to do is email us and we'll give you as many as you want. They come on little cards that look like this. I happen to have one on my desk. One of my jokes is I might have that tattooed on me someplace before I get done with this job. So those are available to anybody who would like them. Next slide, please. We do professional development workshops. Primarily, these are the 3 that we're working on now, is a writing effective plan, transition plans, student-led IEPs, and developing job shadow experiences. You can request live in-person training. We're also moving to doing some online training with live online training with people throughout the state for next year. And these 3 courses will be in e-learning by September if I get it all together this summer. Next, please. We also have created through some funding with DVR, a transition portfolio that's an online tool for students. It's student-centered. It has guidance for facilitators embedded in it. It has interactive exercises that aligns with the IEP transition process, as well as the high school and beyond plan, and connects with DVR's pre-employment transition services, and focuses very strongly on self-determination skills for students. It's free. It's very accessible. We are continuing to update it as we move through. This is our first year of the full implementation, and we're very excited. It's being used throughout the state in various places, and people are finding that it's very helpful. And it's designed so you can use it as a complete portfolio, or you use bits and pieces depending upon what your needs are. Next slide, please, Carol. We also have some tools on our system called the Transition Framework. We have the Indicator B13 tool that reviews IEPs and the components of the transition section of the IEP. There's a process for quality indicators for secondary transition called the QUIST, and the second Special Education Consistency Index. And those last two are in development for our new platform. So anytime you're interested, you can just go visit those particular tools on the website. The next slide has our contact information, and we are happy to serve you however we can. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And next is e-learning for educators, and I'm going to open that, and then I will turn that over to Elaine, and she'll talk more specifically about our delivery format and the type of training that we offer. So our mission is to provide statewide access to affordable online courses to support educators and serving students with disabilities. Our delivery model is such that we can offer our courses anytime and anywhere. We focus on relevant topics in special ed, and folks can earn professional development, and they can earn their clock hours. So as I said, we offer the courses to all educators. We're actually housed at the Evergreen State College, so our clock hours are through Evergreen. Our model, again, is they're available continuously. Folks can register and start anytime. So we have people who are registering every day, and some may be starting, some may be finishing, and we just manage that. And we offer them anytime, anywhere. It's a self-paced, online, user-friendly format. Folks register, and they have 3 months from the date that they register to complete the course. So they can do it at their own pace. And OSPI accepts our clock hours for certificate maintenance. And our content, what we do, rather than reinvent the wheel, we take trainings that are developed by OSPI and other state needs projects, or the IRIS Center modules, if you're familiar with those, and other already vetted evidence-based modules. We take those and package them into course offerings. So we don't have to create this. They're already out there. It's already been vetted. And Chris mentioned that several of their trainings that they're currently offering, we're working with them to put them into an online course offering in the fall. And then Elaine, do you want to talk a little bit more about the delivery format and our courses?
Yes. Oh, hi, everyone. I also recognize some names from people who have taken some of our courses, so good to be with you. Our delivery format is fully online through the Canvas Learning Management System, and participants work through content in a variety of formats: written information, video clips and demonstrations, audio interviews, interactive activities, maybe recorded at webinars or online modules with narration. And basically it varies slightly by the class, but that's kind of the general format. Go ahead, Carol. And our current offerings, we've tried to group here. We basically have 19 courses right now, and we're adding all the time. As Chris said, we'll be adding some about transition in the fall. And we have, so in the areas of accommodations and assistive technology, assessment and instruction, you can move along, behavior and classroom management, early childhood, secondary transition, and special education processes. And we also have coming soon some online mini training modules that will address common training needs arising in the citizen complaint process that will be designed for either groups or individuals, and provide an option if you have an area that comes up, if you need a vetted training, it'll be available for no cost. It'll just be some small online training modules that you can use in next fall that will be coming. And there's our contact information. Just let us know anytime. Also, Carol sends out e-promos to all the directors, so you might be getting those at some time when we have new offerings. So look for those. You can forward them on to your staff. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Elaine. Scott wasn't able to be with us today, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Special Education Support Center for him. As you can see, they work collaboratively with organizations to ensure that educators and families have a clear understanding of state and federal rules and best practices, and they provide training, support, consultation, and technical assistance. These are their current topics for the professional development offerings that they're covering right now. And all of these are listed on their website, which you'll see on the last contact screen. So if you want more information about the course descriptions, they're there on their website for you. So they offer the training, support, and consultation and the technical assistance by request. So districts, schools, agencies, and or organizations can contact them and arrange for their cadre of folks to come out and provide that support to them. There's also a week-long special education boot camp that they're now known as the Special Education Learning Institute. So they've revamped that a bit, but they were previously called the Special Education Boot Camps, if you're familiar with that. And there is their website. And I understand, Helene, that this will be available to folks electronically, so they'll have those active hyperlinks for future reference. And then I mentioned their cadre. These are the folks who go out and provide the training and technical assistance. They're made up of a variety of folks, school psychs, SLPs, teachers, administrators, and they do provide those trainings throughout the state. And again, these are the Special Ed Summer Learning Institutes, formerly known as Special Education Boot Camps. Registrants receive 4 days of intensive training on special ed issues. This year, they are offering them at 3 different locations throughout the state: in Pasco, Battleground, and in Auburn. Pasco is in June, Battleground is end of July, first part of August, and Auburn is the first full week in August. And the 4 strands that they focus on are teaching and learning, special education, culturally responsive strategies, and ELL, and national board renewal jumpstart. So that's the focus for their institutes this year. And then they want to know, what can we do for you? So contact them through their website. And this is their information. Scott and Jill are happy to assist you. And with that, Kristen, I will turn it over to you to talk about SETC.
Thank you, Carol. I'd say that's true of all of the state needs projects. We'd love to hear from you and what can we do for you, because after all, we're a state needs project based on the needs out there. I liked what Chris from CCTS said about when we have high quality IEPs, that resulting in better graduation rates. The same is true with assistive technology. When there's processes in place where teams know how to consider assistive technology, how to document that in the IEP, there's better outcomes in that assistive technology being implemented. So a lot of our services stem from that consideration process, kind of also supporting with how do you do an AT assessment and the consideration, and then what's in that IEP and how do we implement it. And so a lot of our services just relate to that whole process. But this kind of gives an overview of our services. We have a lending library of technology. We provide technical assistance and consultations around technology and I'll get into that a little bit down the road. Professional development on all these different types of things, processes and guidelines around assistive technology, the specific tools and the strategies around implementing them, a lot on communication tools. So students with complex communication needs and how to determine what they need and strategies to implement. And then a lot more recently on universal design for learning and implementation of that, and exploration right now, but then implementation. We can go to the next slide. So our lending library, the key purpose is so that teachers and therapists and also parents involved with trying technology to see what might work best, because trial is critical in and assessing what the child needs. And so without the district having to purchase some of these things, can we try them first, see what works, and then consider that purchase? So that's a main goal. Also for professional development for your teams, because the question does come up from parents, sometimes lawyers, how is your team equipped to consider assistive technology? And so when teams have tried things, when teams have come to professional development on assistive technology, they have some footing to say, this is how we consider assistive technology. So we have communication devices, a ton of iPads with apps, a lot of communication apps, different types of learning apps. We have adaptive switches, mounts, all those sorts of hardware items as well, some computers with some software like speech recognition to trial. Those are the things in our lending library. Coming up, I'm hoping to develop some kits. And this all comes from really folks giving input, but perhaps a transition kit where we have handheld devices with things around executive functioning, as well as communication, a switch training kit where the team can check out not only an array of switches, but some items that go along with that for young switch users, such as different types of toys and a little bit of software with that. And then we have our AT on wheels that can be checked out through our lending library that we're updating, and that has a bunch of technology, again, for the team to check out, and then we hop on Zoom and talk about that technology in relation to their classrooms and students. We can go to the next slide. I've got to catch us up, don't I? Because we're nearing our end of our time. The consultation, we do about 30, a little over 30 this year that are formal consults where we come to you, we visit with the team and the student, and we might try some technology. We do a lot more of kind of online support, hopping on Zoom, talking with the team, or phone support. And that phone support and an hour of our time with just one of us is free to you, and I recognize some of your names and have called specifically for this consultation piece where you call up and say, I have a kid that, and we talk through that. So we'll go on from there. And professional development, it's an exciting time in professional development because we're exploring with ways to provide more remote options. So we've always had our webinars that are Monday through Thursday, but last week we experimented with having a conference, and we would put our feelers out to who would like to host, and we ended up with 15 sites. So if we host a conference, say in Federal Way, our capacity there is about 100 people, and we were able to have 15 sites with about 268 people joining and not having to travel, so that burden and expense of travel. So look for more of that from us, where we're offering remote trainings, not only kind of on demand where you can get it yourself at the time you need it, but also structured times where we're able to offer it in many locations. Next slide, I think we're wrapping up. Dissemination of information. We've been very involved in regional meetings. And so tomorrow we have our statewide regional meeting, which we have twice a year, 10 locations. So folks, again, don't have to travel. I really look at that group. Sometimes it's 140, sometimes 100, but really as a steering committee, because they're out there in your districts really knowing what the need is, and they supply us with information about all of our professional development as well as our lending library. And anyway, fun to see this build up over the years, to see so many people involved across the state in assistive technology. So next slide, I think, yep. And so when you call, you'll most likely hear Sue Wright answering the phone. She's been with the project many years, very knowledgeable about what we have to offer. And so we'd love to hear from you and hear how we can help meet your needs around assistive technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. So last but not least is Washington Sensory Disability Services, and Brent is not able to be with us today, so I will cover the project for him. It is designed to support individuals aged birth to 21 who are deaf or hard of hearing, blind or visually impaired or deafblind. They provide training, technical assistance, and other resources to service providers and families. This is who they are. They are complex. They have several separate components that support the WSDS services, specifically the Center for Childhood Deafness and Hearing Loss, the Deaf Blind Project, Washington State School for the Blind, and the Washington State School for the Deaf. And this is a nice diagram that shows how they blend their services together to provide support to those students and families. They provide training to service providers, administrators, family members, consultation and technical assistance. They do program review and evaluation. They offer web-based resources, and they also do parent networking. There is their website there that talks in more detail about their complex services that they provide. And they do have staff located throughout the state. For the deaf or hard of hearing, it's the CDHL, Center on Childhood Deafness and Hearing Loss, and Carol Carruthers and Chris Ching are the contact resource for this particular component of WSDS. And these are the responsibilities of CDHL. Blind or visually impaired component, Pam Parker and DeEtte Snyder would be your contact for information on their services. They collaborate, WSDS collaborates with the Washington State School for the Blind. And then combined hearing and vision loss is Katie Humes with the Deaf Blind Project, that component of WSDS. And that was very brief for that particular project. We want to be respectful of your time. We're going a little over, but the logos have active hyperlinks. So when you get this electronic version, you can go to the project websites and get a lot more detail. And also their contact information will be there as well. So thank you so much for your time and for including us in your morning.
Thanks to all of you for sharing information. Before, I think Jennifer is ready to jump in, but there is one question that you may be able to answer in. Sarah asked the group if there's going to be instruction on how to make those same considerations during testing. We're finding, oh, I just lost the chat, so we'll come back to it. So, we'll come back to that question so that we make sure that that's answered, but also this is a great opportunity. Oh, we're finding that several technology devices do not work with the SBAC testing system.
Oh, Helene, I started to answer that in the chat, but I can get you guys some links. We've been working on this and have some webinars on our YouTube channel around this, but that's very true. SBAC and Air Server are working on that because it's true that some of the technologies the students use throughout the year, we come to the SBA and then they can't use those same technologies. And so it's, SBAC has come out with a guide for assistive technology readiness. Well, I shouldn't say they've come out with it yet, but it's produced. We're giving feedback on that this week. I'm not sure when that comes out.
Kristen, that's great information. It's a great reminder that we'll be posting the PowerPoints, a recording of this Zoom meeting, and if there are any links to other information that you want to send my way, we'll get that posted under our Academy section of our WASA website. Jennifer, okay. I see you and I bet you're ready to roll, so thank you ever so much.
Good morning. Are you able to see the first slide of our PowerPoint? Is that what's showing right now?
Yes.
Helene nodding. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to start us off.
Good morning, everyone. I am in travel mode this morning, so I appreciate the flexibility, and I hope that everyone can hear me okay. So I'm going to be brief because we're a few minutes over, and I really want to make sure that we get to the core details that we're going to talk about today. So we have really just three goals in our conversation this morning. One, to just make sure that you understand the language that's involved in 1599 and some of the changes that'll be coming. Jennifer's going to walk us through those pathways that are included right now and some timelines that are called out in the legislation. And then we'll come back around to just the beginnings of some of the next steps. There are some next steps built into the bill and also some flexibility around what may come down the line. So here is some of the language from the bill, and we linked right there to the version that was passed so that you have that. So basically, you know, what it comes down to is decoupling assessment from graduation and offering rigorous and meaningful pathway options for students to move toward graduation. So a brief summary. As I said, it decouples the graduation requirement from statewide high school assessments. And so what that means is for the class of 2019, it's discontinuing the certificate of academic achievement, and effective with the class of 2022, discontinuing the certificate of individual achievement. It also, thanks Jen, it also includes or extends the appeals process for certain graduation requirements to be waived. And so that's going to be extended for the class of 2019 and 2020 instead of being phased out in 2018. So just continuing on with the bill, it will require students in the class of 2020 and after to demonstrate career and college readiness through the pathways that are included here and or may be added in the future. There will need to be optional assessments available to students so that they can demonstrate career and college readiness. That begins with 2021. And then a final note for everyone, just to be clear, that when we're talking about what might be available for a student, it's based on their four-year cohort, not necessarily the year that they may graduate from school for those who are staying longer. And so just to come back to some of what Chris Hirschman shared when she was talking about CCTS. So we have, you know, our data that shows about half of our students with disabilities in Washington have been following the pathway of the Certificate of Individual Achievement. And when we compare that to the long-term outcomes for our students, so starting with post-school outcomes, but even continuing on in terms of employment as they move on in life, there's a disconnect there. We're not seeing the outcomes that we would hope for this population. And so that's just, you know, always we want to start with why. Why is this important and why is it urgent to think about alternatives? This is where we begin. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who's going to walk us through the timelines and some of the details around the pathways.
Thank you, Tanya. So we wanted to share this summary chart with you that shows the pathways that are available for students and the years that they're available. The pathways that are in the top set are the ones that are going to be continuing and available for all students. The four that are listed on the bottom are the ones that are going to be sunsetting or they're going to be discontinued. So looking at the options that are available for the class of 2019, and as Tanya mentioned, when we talk about class of 2019, we're talking about the cohort of students based on the year that they enter high school, their four-year graduation date. So they would be the class of 2019, even if they decided, even if they needed to stay 5, 6, or 7 years in order to finish all the graduation requirements. It's based on that four-year cohort. So if you note the second to the bottom one, the CIA pathway, that one is just for students with disabilities, and that is going to stay in place for this year's 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So the classes of 2019, 2020, and 2021. But it is going to be discontinued beginning with this year's 9th graders. So that's the class of 22 and beyond. The bill states that districts are encouraged to make all of these pathways available to students, all of the ones that are going to be ongoing in that top set. but they do indicate that districts have the discretion as to deciding which options the district will be offering. On the left-hand side, the information that just came in shows that the first 6 options at the top, students would need to meet one of those each for ELA, English Language Arts, and meet one of them for math. The last 2, the ASVAB and the CTE sequence, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about, those would meet the requirements for both ELA and math. So let's talk a little bit more about what these pathways are. So although technically the bill did decouple the state assessment requirement from graduation, it did continue the state assessment as one of the pathway options. So that didn't completely go away. One of the options is what we have had so far, is to meet or exceed the graduation standard on the high school on grade level assessment, either the Smarter Balanced Assessment or the WAAIM in both English Language Arts and math. So that is still going to be an available option for students. The rest of these are going to be new ones that are coming into play as other optional pathways. Dual credit, so participation in a course in which the student qualifies for both college and high school credit. A high school transition course. An example of this is Bridge to College. So a high school transition course is a course where successful completion ensures that the student will have college level placement at a participating institute of higher learning. It doesn't entitle the student to be admitted, but if the student is admitted, they would be ensured to have college level placement in those classes. Additional information from the bill also specifies that for the high school transition course, it also has to satisfy one of the core or elective credit graduation requirements that are set by the State Board of Education. The next new option is going to be getting a C+ grade in an advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or Cambridge International course, or score a 3 or higher on the advanced placement exam, or score a 4 or higher on the International Baccalaureate exam. So the bill also lists includes a list of the advanced placement courses that would meet this standard. I'm not going to list all of those now, but if you're interested in seeing which AP courses they've identified to meet the standard, you can check out the bill. Another pathway option is going to be for the student to meet or exceed the score threshold on the SAT or ACT that is established by the State Board of Education. And then the last 2, as we mentioned, that would meet the requirements for both English Language Arts and math. The first one is to meet the standard on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, or the ASVAB. And then the last one would be a sequence of career and technical education courses that are relevant to the student's post-secondary pathway, including those that lead to workforce entry, apprenticeships, post-secondary education. And they also have to meet the curriculum requirements of the Core Plus programs. The bill lists the Core Plus programs, and they include aerospace, maritime, healthcare, information technology, construction, manufacturing. So those are all listed in the bill. Or the minimum criteria identified in that RCW. And the RCW is specifying that the course should lead to a certificate or credential, should allow students to earn dual credit, or lead to workforce entry. So those are the types of considerations specified with that RCW. So there still is an expedited appeal in place, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. This is for students who have demonstrated the necessary skills to meet the graduation standard, and the student has the skills necessary to achieve the college and career goals established in the High School and Beyond plan. And the pathways for the expedited appeal are listed there. So right now, the expedited appeal process is still in place. The other graduation requirements are still in play. They did not go away, although some of the language changed a little bit with regard to the high school and beyond plan. So all students beginning in 7th or 8th grade should have a high school and beyond plan that is initiated. It has to include a career interest and skills inventory. There's some new language in the bill that talks about students with an IEP, and for those students, the high school and beyond plan should be developed in alignment with their IEP. So that is specific language in the new bill. Once the student enters high school, the high school and beyond plan has to be updated to reflect the high school assessment results and review transcripts and progress toward the identified goals, as well as the high school and beyond plan also has to be updated to inform junior year course taking. There's some additional new language about students with IEPs that the high school and beyond plan has to be updated in alignment with the IEP post-school transition plan. And the high school and beyond plan for all students, including students with disabilities, should be completed in a similar manner and with similar school personnel as for all students. Another graduation requirement is to satisfy State Board of Ed and district graduation requirements. One of those pieces is the career and college ready graduation requirement. And that is something that allows districts to waive waive up to 2 credit requirements based on the student's high school and beyond plan. So for example, the 3rd credit of math or the 3rd credit of science, the content of those could be chosen by the student based on their interests and their post-school goals in the high school and beyond plan, with the agreement of the parent and the school counselor or principal. Students must still meet the credit requirements. Those credit requirements have not gone away. And as we've been talking, they need to meet the requirements of at least one of the graduation pathways we've been talking about. A couple of other related things that we wanted to remind folks of. Kevin's Law is still in play. Kevin's Law allows certain students with disabilities who have not earned a high school diploma to participate in the graduation ceremony itself. That has not gone away. That is still in place. And then student learning plans are still required for 8th grade students who are not successful on any or all of the content areas of the state assessment during the previous year, or who are not on track due to credit deficiencies or absences. And there's a number of things that the student learning plan has to include. I'll give you a few of them. So the student's results on the state assessment, that would include the English language proficiency assessment if appropriate. It has to address credit deficiencies, attendance rates, progress towards the graduation requirements, courses and competencies that the student needs to take in order to meet those standards, how those will be remediated or alternative education options available. So those are the types of things that student learning plans need to address. And again, just a reminder that the Certificate of Individual Achievement concludes with the graduating class of 2021. That is this year's sophomores. So those are for students for which the Smarter Balanced Assessment and graduation alternatives, the other graduation alternatives we talked about, are not appropriate, even with accommodations. And OSPI and the state's Special Education Advisory Council will be working on developing guidelines for determining what types of multiple measures will determine and demonstrate skills and abilities under this section. So, and we'll also be looking at what graduation pathways might need to be added in order to support achievement of all students under this new bill and these new requirements. So I'm going to transition back over to Tanya.
Thanks, Jennifer. I just wanted to point out that the multiple measure section in the bill is section 104. So that may be one that everybody will want to take a look at. As I'm talking now, I'm going to transition to, I guess, more of the conversation about, so what next? One of the things I really appreciated about this legislation is, I think, the acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers that we need yet. There's urgency to act and to begin making sure that pathways are available to all students. But there's also going to be opportunities in this interim time, this transition time that we have, to really gather input from a variety of stakeholders and provide that information to the State Board of Ed, and also, as Jennifer said, to our advisory council around what else might need to be included here. So starting in August 2019, the State Board of Ed, part of this legislation is for them to open up a survey and to begin collecting data around what are the existing supports, what are barriers for each of the pathways, and then what pathways are being accessed by these our various student groups, and then also what additional pathways are recommended. That could be, again, thinking about the multiple measures, or again, just an additional pathway that we might be able to add. And something we didn't put on here, but it's in section 301, it's also talking about bringing together a work group. So in addition to the survey, there'll be a work group to look through all of this data that comes in, and then also to look at expanding mastery-based pathways and additional credits for students. So we can go to the next slide. So, what does this mean now? What can we start doing now? So Chris Hirschman, when she was talking about CCTS, talked about a work group that had come together. And so part of that was looking at how to be collaborating and teaming around the development of the high school and beyond plan, and how that can be aligned to a student's transition plan. And just a reminder that high school and beyond plan must be developed in a similar manner and with similar staffing as all other students. So that means that if other students are having that developed with a counselor, with advisors, that same process needs to be in place for our students with disabilities. The other activity that we can begin now or continue now is what we think of as small t transition. So transition, not so much specifically in the transition plan, although it certainly could be in there, but transitions between and across the grade levels. So partnering closely with your cohorts in elementary, with your partners in middle school, and those teams around how are we developing IEPs that are going to help the students and be thinking about their post-school plans all the way through. And then also continuing to really think carefully around how to expand opportunities for our students with disabilities to access core instruction in general education settings across all grade levels, so that they have that rigor and they're experiencing that level of access throughout their educational careers. So with that, we just also wanted to make sure that you had all of our contact information. So in terms of questions that are specific to the pathways and would this count, and so details about the pathways, the best place to start for that is our OSPI assessment office and reaching out to Clarice Leon. If it's questions that are specific to the IEP, to transition plans, to assessment decisions for our students with disabilities, then certainly reaching out to OSPI Special Education, and then if it's, again, more focused on transition, also to CCTS, of course. So Jennifer and I have managed to do that with 1 minute to spare. So I think that was pretty amazing. So I don't know, if there are questions. One last thing I wanted to say, Chris mentioned the transition forum that's going to be, she had put it in the chat box, June 24th and 25th in Yakima. And, OSPI will be there as well. And Chris and I are working on developing a session that will provide some more detail around this legislation, and provide some time for attendees to team together and think through some planning for the coming year. And also just a reminder that our partners from Vocational Rehabilitation and the Developmental Disabilities Administration will be at that forum as well. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. It's quite remarkable that all of that information was covered in the amount of time that it was. It was a lot to absorb. you know, $15.99 is just kind of a couple of weeks in for having been passed. So putting this information together is really just such an asset to the field. We probably do have time for one question, perhaps. And if not, you can be sure we'll be revisiting topics such as this at our WASA OSPI Special Ed Directors, the Special Ed Conference, August 1st and 2nd. You'll be receiving information about that. So let me stop and see if there's one question. Okay, hearing none, I want to thank you again for your participation. I want to say thank you again to all the presenters today. Jamie put the link to where the resources will be shared, and wish you all a great day. Some of you will be joining at 11:30 today when we have the webinar that is co-sponsored by OSPI, WASA, AWSP with the assistance of the district management group. So take good care, everybody. Have a marvelous end of the school year. We'll see you this summer. Stay tuned for information about a Special Ed Directors Academy continuation. Have a great one. Bye now.